Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this. Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Every time I say it, it's going to suck even more.
May I present to you the cat?
I am Medela. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing. Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb.
Hey.
And we are here to talk all things tech this week. And you know what? We do have stuff to talk about. We were a little worried, but hey, we found something.
A few things.
Just a few things. Well, let's get into it, shall we? First up here, we got some Apple news. We're going to talk about all of the things available now.
Yep, listener. As of the moment at which you are listening to this podcast, you are now able to go update your Apple devices to iOS 18, macOS Sequoia, watchOS 11, iPadOS, tvOS, whatever. All of these updates for this year should be available right now. The launch date is September 16th. It is currently the 15th as of recording, but by the time you are listening to this, I imagine it will be after the 16th, unless Landon really burns the midnight oil tonight.
No, I can do that. Sorry.
Yeah, so there we go. So yes, if you have Apple devices that you would like to update to the latest versions of the things, you may do that now. You have my permission. Wait, actually, no, don't do it right now. Wait until you are finished listening to the podcast on those devices, then update.
There you
Sound
go.
good? Okay. Glad we're on the same page.
Good. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next thing. We're going to talk about Mark Gurman now expects an October 30th Mac and iPad event.
Yes. So, previously, we have reported that Mark Gurman was expecting a Mac event of some form to come in November. Shortly after that, he said that he was expecting a refreshed iPad mini to be announced in October, and he has now said that he is expecting those to actually line up and happen at the same time. And more likely to be October. At the end of October, he's eyeing the 30th as the likely day for that. So we are now expecting Macs and a new iPad mini, possibly a new like iPad 11, like lowest tier iPad to replace the 10th gen at the very end of October instead of in November. So a little bit earlier than it otherwise would have been, which, let's be honest, makes a lot of sense if they want to get these things onto store shelves and into people's carts in time for Black Friday.
Yes.
So end of October for new Macs and potentially some low-end iPads. I am actually in the market for a new iPad sometime in the next, 4 or 5 months here. And I was looking, let's be honest, the iPad Air, current generation of the iPad Air, is quite good. Looks very nice, has the M2 processor, and that's great. But an 11th gen iPad could also be in the running. So, remains to be seen. But that's something that I am eyeing. I'm interested, also very interested in what happens with the Mac Mini at this event. And we should also be seeing updates to the iMac and the laptops, MacBook Pros, which, would be really cool. Would be really cool is if they were to announce a regular MacBook to go along with the MacBook Airs and the MacBook Pros. Just a MacBook. Apple. Never gonna stop harping on this one.
Yeah.
Like a $700 plastic chassis MacBook. You would sell so many of those. Just words cannot even describe. Anyways, so yes, that's coming end of October. And until then, I'm not likely to ever have Apple news. Basically, just for the next month and a half, there's not going to be really any Apple news. Cool.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that they're going to stick with the A series chips in these lower end iPads, or do you think they'll ever put an M series in them?
I am on the fence about the mini. I feel like they could potentially put the Mini over to the M series processors just because it's price. Like, as it's priced, it's a slightly more premium product than that lowest tier. I would expect the lowest tier iPad to continue to feature iPhone hardware. I don't think we're going to see an M series processor in that guy for a very long time, if ever. You know, I honestly would be surprised if it even gets the Pro version of this year's A series chip. I would expect it to get the A. What is it again? We're on the 18
chip,
something like that. Whatever. I think it's the A18, right?
Yeah.
And then the 18 Pro was for the iPhone Pros. I would expect it to be the A18, not the Pro version. Which, to be clear, for the vast majority of people who are using an iPad, that is as much power as they're ever going to need on that device.
Yeah.
And honestly, for me personally, it's borderline. Like, there are some workflows that I do in art-focused apps that definitely would benefit from, if nothing else, the increased RAM and GPU horsepower of an M series processor. But it's borderline. I'm not what you would call a fine artist. My art does not tend to, I'm not the guy who is creating a piece of artwork that's going into, like, the thousands of layers for digital art or something like that. I use layers. I do. They're very important to my workflow. I use 4, maybe 5 of them. It's a small number, and an iPhone chip would handle it just fine. Honestly, I'd be more likely to stress the thing out with GarageBand or maybe iMovie. I don't know. And even then, it's unlikely. So I could probably get away with an A18 powered iPad. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that, because I'm expecting it to be, again, in the 350 and below price range, which is real nice.
Yeah.
So just so long as it's compatible with not the first generation pencil. Like,
that was going to be my next question. Do you think they're going to kill off that first gen pencil with the announcement?
They freaking better.
Because right now, as far as I know, the only pencil or the only iPad that works, well, no, the first gen works with other iPads, doesn't it?
I think the first gen does technically work with it works with the current generation Mini.
Yeah.
And it works with the 10th gen. But I think that's it now that they've updated the Air. Because the current iPad Air and the current iPad Pros both only work with the new $79 pencil and the Pencil Pro, which is a thing that exists still, despite my wishes. Anyways, I think that's the case. And honestly, isn't the Mac Mini still rocking a home button? Or am I crazy?
No,
they got rid of the home button on the last one, right?
iPad Mini is the same design language as the Air and the Pro.
Right. Oh, but it doesn't have Face ID. It has the fingerprint sensor in the button, like in the power button. Yeah. So yeah, I think that one they did update to work with the second gen pencil when that was announced. And I think the second gen pencil also works with the 10th gen iPad, but they both are also still compatible with the first gen pencil. I think.
So I just pulled it up on Google. I did a search and it says first gen pencil. The newest one I'm seeing, well, it says iPad Mini 5th generation, iPad 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th generation, and then a 10th generation with a little asterisk, so I don't know for sure on that one. iPad Air 3rd generation, 1st and 2nd gen iPad Pro, iPad Pro 10 in 10.5, and iPad Pro 7. So those are all older iPads for the most part.
Yep. So yeah, because I think currently we're on the 5th generation Mini, because that thing is the redheaded stepchild of the iPad lineup and they never update it. So the numbers are just quite low on that one. And then the asterisk on the 10th generation iPad, I'm assuming, is probably that you have to have their special stupid lightning to USB-C dongle for that thing in order to pair it
does come
to
with
the
that.
iPad. It does come with that, but maybe that's what that means. Is it's all like technically supported, technically it works, but you require a dongle in order to pair them. Though, doesn't the current generation iPad mini have a USB-C port?
Yeah.
So you'd need the same thing for that, too. What is the current generation of the iPad mini? Is it the 5th gen, or is it later?
Not sure. It's showing on Apple's website the iPad mini with the iPad or the Pencil 2 clicking to it, so.
Yeah. Which, yeah, that was, I knew it was compatible with that because it's got the flat side, and all the flat-sided iPads are compatible with that thing.
We're on the 6th generation iPad mini.
We're on the 6th generation iPad mini. So no, the 10th is really the only one currently still compatible with the 1st generation iPad. So yes, if they do update that thing, then that Pencil sure as heck better die.
It needs to go away.
It really does.
Honestly, the 2nd generation Apple Pencil probably, or not the second, the USB-C Apple Pencil should also just go away, but it's not going to.
I think what's happening is the USB-C Pencil is replacing the 1st gen Pencil. The Pencil Pro is replacing the 2nd gen Pencil, and they're going to continue to sell those two alongside each other. So just in case you want a cheaper pencil, which fair. And I think for a lot of people that are just interested in it as like a note-taking device and that kind of thing, that $79 pencil is fine. Personally, I would probably still go for the Pencil Pro just because, pressure sensitivity. But yeah, we will hopefully have answers, like concrete answers to all of these questions here in about a month and a bit, listener. I'll keep you updated if we find anything out early, but odds are very good that we will not have any actual Apple news until the 30th of October.
Yep. So. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's move on. We have some Google news here. We're going to talk about the Pixel 9 parts, the official Pixel 9 parts, which are now available from iFixit.
Yeah. So Google, the last few years, has most companies now have actually partnered with iFixit to provide official documents, like documentation and parts in order to fix certain devices. And Google has now already got parts and tutorials on how to fix their Pixel 9 phones over to iFixit. So if you've already broken something on your Pixel device and don't want to send it into Google, you just want to fix it yourself because you don't want to wait forever and a day to get your phone back, you can do it yourself with official parts. And the really nice thing here is I saw that on the Pixel 8, the USB-C port was soldered onto the motherboard of the phone. So if you wanted to replace just the port, you had to replace a lot more and spend a lot more money. On the Pixel 9 phones, that is not the case. So you can just replace the USB-C port if you need to, which the ports in general can tend to break depending on how you're using or misusing the device. So that's nice that you can just replace that part now instead of whereas last year you had to spend a lot more money to do that and make it a lot more difficult. So that's nice. But yeah, I looked on their website. They've got quite a few different parts now available for all of the Pixel 9 series of phones. So again, if you have already broken something, there you go. Now you've got a way to fix it yourself if you want to.
And rest assured that they're probably not, judging you over at iFixit when you order replacement parts for a Pixel 9. They're just like, really? Already?
Yeah.
As they package it up and ship it out.
Okay. We're going to move on to some general tech news. We got Huawei Mate XT.
All right. This phone is something because I'm only talking about it because of the design of the phone. It's the first phone that can fold in not just one direction. It can fold. Well, it folds in one direction, but it folds in two different places. We'll say that. And
it's so silly.
It's really interesting. And I have to say that there is one major red flag to this because they announced it on the same day as Apple's iPhone event. And
Yep.
you only do that if for one of two reasons. One, you actually think like you don't care what Apple's doing and you think your product is that much better, or you're trying to hide it. Usually it's the second, that you're trying to, I'm going to release this and everyone's going to be talking about that instead of this. So there's a red flag right there. But I am very intrigued with this device. It looks pretty interesting. I'm not going to go over all the specs because it's not going to be available everywhere and not here in the US. But it does look pretty cool. And one thing that's really interesting about it is how skinny this device is while folded up. It's the same thickness as the Samsung Galaxy Fold folded up. Like both of them together folded next to each other are the same thickness. So something that has two different folds in it versus something that has one fold, and they're the same. So unfolded all the way, this thing is quite thin. So that's impressive. But it's really interesting. The really cool thing I like about it is when it's fully closed, the outside screen that's available to look at is it's a normal 6.4 inch screen. Nothing massive, nothing small, just a normal 6.4 inch rectangular phone. Great. And then you can fold it open one time and get a little bit bigger if you want to. And it goes to like 7.9 inches, I think is what they're saying. But then you can open it up again into like basically a full 10.2 inch rectangular, like diagonal measurement tablet. And I've seen a lot of people, it's like, this is the phone we really want. We don't want something that is a nice, decent sized phone to a slightly bigger, basically twice the size of a phone. Some people that really want the massive productivity type device, this is it, because you can get a full 10-inch tablet out of this thing. And that is cool. It's not something that I would want, but I do understand the appeal to it. It's just the interesting thing here is one of these screens folds out and one folds in. So it's got, it's interesting how it works, but I'm very intrigued by it. I definitely want to see how the durability of this thing is, because that's always a question when it comes to any of these folding phones. Traditionally, like the Pixels and the Samsung Fold phones have been relatively durable for the most part, as long as you don't get it in a really dusty, dirty, sandy location. Don't give it to jerry-rig everything, because he will destroy it. But
I was just going to say, how is he even going to test the folding on, like the bend on this thing? Because anytime he grabs it, it's going to fold, from either side. And that's by design. There's a hinge that folds in that direction. That's going to be weird to watch.
Maybe that's exactly what they were thinking. How can we make this phone so Zach won't completely destroy it the first try? Which I'm sure he will anyways, but...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he'll destroy it the first time just by taking a knife and slicing the plastic cover off the screen.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's going to be available, like I said, in China initially, and then other countries later, but not coming to the US. And it's also really, 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 really expensive, because if this were coming to the US, the price on it is around $2,800. So twice that of most traditional folding phones out here right now. Oh, it's a lot of money. So, I mean, it's funny because like you could spend $2,800 on a really, really good MacBook Pro.
Yep.
That can do way more than a phone. But,
Hey, if you really want a super high-end productivity-focused tablet, you could also get an iPad Pro for significantly less money. Like the completely maxed out version, I think, is, well, maybe $2,800. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
You completely max the thing out.
I mean, you could do the same thing with a Surface if you're on the Windows side of things. You get a maxed out Surface tablet that can do way more than a phone for probably less money. It's like, it's an interesting choice. It's definitely geared toward a certain type of person that has lots of money to spend on a interesting device. I mean, it's fine. People can spend their money how they want. I'm not going to judge you that much.
It's only a little bit.
Yeah,
It's only a little bit.
Just a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to mention it because I'm curious to see how this type of device, one, holds up, and two, how popular it actually is going to be. So there you go. Huawei Mate XT. You should look up the picture of it, listener, because like I said, it is intriguing.
Now, what I will say is that if any phone out there deserves to be called the Z Fold,
this is it.
It's this one.
That's it. Yep.
Samsung.
100%.
This one actually folds into a Z shape, just for the record.
Just saying.
Yeah, Huawei and Samsung ought to switch naming schemes. Like the Samsung ones could be called the X because they could easily just put two of them together and make an X, whereas this one is a Z. It should be the Mate Z or ZT or whatever they want to do, you know?
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Let's go ahead and let's move into some gaming news. We actually have some hardware that's been announced. We have the PlayStation 5 Pro. Let's go ahead and just say what this is first, and then we'll
Honestly,
get into some thoughts.
You know, even this is coming from me. We could just literally stop it. Moving on.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, it is.
Let me just get over this. Let's do this first. Let me say what it is. Then we'll get our thoughts. Because we're going to just go on a thought rant, okay?
Okay,
so Sony has officially announced its PlayStation 5 Pro console, which will launch on November 7th at $700. The console will come with a 2 terabyte SSD, obviously Wi-Fi 7, 8K support. Let me get back anyway, and a free copy of Astro Playroom. However, customers who want a disk drive will need to purchase it separately. It is that same detachable disk drive. Why did they want to do this? So I'm going to just throw this out there. So what's in this? They have an upgraded GPU with 67% more compute units and 28% faster memory than its current PlayStation 5. They say it should lead up to 45% faster rendering for gameplay. You have advanced ray tracing, which means that the PlayStation 5 Pro will be able to cast rays up to 3 times the speed of the regular PS5. And then they have the PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. Do we have a bad names category? Let's see. Where's that at? If someone wants to update that, I will say it again. PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. Doesn't that sound like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in some way, somehow?
I mean, it kind of does, yeah.
So we're going to call it PSSR for short. Sony has created its own AI upscaling technology for the PlayStation 5 Pro that will improve image qualities in games.
Well, wait a second. It would be PSSR. PSSSR. Because PlayStation is PS. Always has been.
But they said that it's called PSSR.
No, it's PlayStation, so PS. Spectral is an S.
I know.
Super Resolution is SR.
I agree with you. I'm not arguing.
Sony.
I agree
in fact,
with
it's
you.
technically the Sony PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution.
Oh,
so it's the SPSSR.
Did anyone write that down in our worst names for tech? Right there.
I did, yes.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to put Sony on the front of it so that I remember exactly how much I hate this.
Oh, so my first thoughts on this, I was hopeful that this would be good, but what's interesting is I went back and I read this generation's console for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles. And this is literally the same promise that they said that they wanted to make sure that you'll be able to have 4K and 60 frames per second. So I guess they're finally delivering this on this console.
So I want to be clear, listener. $700 sounds like a lot. And it is a lot for a home gaming console. But it is worth noting that it is not the most expensive console ever released. Okay? It's not. The Neo Geo Pocket was even, adjusted for inflation, significantly more expensive. And there were a few from kind of back in that time period that were around the same price, adjusted for inflation. So $700 is a lot, but it's not unheard of. What is maybe more unheard of is the fact that we're this far into the life cycle of the PlayStation 5 and they're still selling for their launch price. Baffling.
Yep.
Like, that has never happened before. Console generations, the original versions of the console get cheaper as you go in, and then they launch a mid-cycle refresh, a Pro version. You know, the PS4 Pro launched at the same price as the PlayStation 4 originally launched because the PlayStation 4 had dropped in price, right? And that's, but no, this is $200 more expensive than the PS5 originally launched. That's the part that kind of, that's the part that kind of bites. Now, in terms of the console itself, the engineering looks good. It's gonna play games really well. Like, the upgraded GPU looks about like, in terms of, the specs and everything that they're giving us, it's gonna be approximately equivalent to a 7800 XT from AMD, because obviously it's an AMD powered chip. And that is a high-end GPU for PCs, right? Not the highest end. If you got a 7800 XTX, then obviously this is not as fast as that, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. This is a powerful thing that's going to be equivalent to like a 4070 Ti in terms of its horsepower. And to be clear, a 4070 Ti plus a high-end gaming processor from AMD, which is probably equivalent to like a 5800 X3D or something along those lines. Maybe the 7800 X3D. Hard to say exactly, but it's kind of in that ballpark. You take that processor and a motherboard that can power it, the equivalent amount of RAM, you pair it with a 4070 Ti, and you put a 2TB SSD in it, and then grab a power supply and a case and all that stuff. This is a $1,000 to $1,500 gaming PC, not $700. Sony is selling this thing at cost, essentially, because that's what game consoles are. They take a loss on the individual hardware units, and then they make it back up in the games and services that they sell you later. That's how it's always been. So every PC gamer out there who's all like, oh, you sucks to be you, because you can build a perfectly playable, quite satisfying gaming experience around a $500 PC, and Sony wants you to pay $700 for the privilege. Yeah, true, but the PS5 Pro is a better gaming PC than your $500 gaming PC by quite a bit. by quite a bit. So, yeah, the price is high, but the console kind of justifies it. Okay. Fair enough. The thing that gets me is Sony really looked at consumers who are buying gaming consoles, which is the majority of people who play video games. And they looked them square in the eyes and went, you know what you really want? What you really need? 8K gaming. Sony, nobody has an 8K TV. Get out of here. Nobody cares about 8K as a selling point. Most people are barely even playing at 4K. Like, console gamers, there's, for the most part, probably still playing at 1080p. What is this crap? And it happens freaking every single generation. Somebody's all like, okay, here's 8K gaming. Like, NVIDIA launched the 3090 on the promise of 8K gaming freaking ages ago.
Yep. Like,
8K is not the future of gaming. It's just not. 4K was. 4K was the future of TVs, because if, you're sitting that far away from a TV, normal viewing distance for a 55-inch plus TV, the pixels are visible at 1080p and they're invisible at 4K. So yeah, that's a logical next step. But if you have a 55-inch TV, there is absolutely no reason to double the number of pixels, to double the resolution, which quadruples the number of pixels from a 4K TV to an 8K TV because you already can't see the dadgum pixels. It makes no gosh darn sense. Nobody is asking for this, and that's why the TVs are not coming down in price at the 8K resolution. They do exist, but nobody has them because it just doesn't make sense. This is not the future of TVs. HDR is probably the future of TVs. And oh gosh, shoot, the PlayStation 5 already supports HDR gaming. So, I don't know. Like, what this is it's a more powerful PlayStation. It's going to enable them to make games that are bigger and more, use more advanced technologies to make them look even prettier and even better than they already do. It's going to has a 2 terabyte hard drive, which in today's day and age of game download sizes is honestly just a win all unto its own. And it's going to give you more frames, so you can start looking at, hey, maybe I should get a TV that supports 120 FPS frames per second instead of 60 hertz, which is what the majority of them do. That's the kind of thing that they should be leaning on. The fact that 8K featured so prominently in the announcements advertising, I just hate that so much.
Yeah, it is annoying. Very annoying. I thought this was an interesting statistic that they said. Sony said that 3/4 players on the consoles actually choose a performance mode more than the graphical mode that they had.
Yeah.
Weird.
Wild.
Yep.
It's almost like nobody has an 8K TV, Sony.
Weird how
like
that
people don't really care if they have the highest resolution possible.
They just want it to be smooth.
I was looking to see if this information is correct, but I think I want to put it out there just because of what happened last time. So when on PlayStation's ecosystem, the PlayStation, if you remember, if you had a PlayStation 4 game and you bought a PlayStation 5, you could play the PlayStation 4 game on your PlayStation 5, but it would only give you the PlayStation 4 stuff. You had to pay $10 or more to get the PlayStation 5 version of that game. So they were throttling your your experience. So I don't know if they'll do the same here to get the PSS, the SPSSR. You may have to pay more money. Who knows? I tried to look it up. They haven't said, but they didn't say it last time on this. But I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, they didn't. It's a PlayStation 5 still. So you'd assume PlayStation 5 games running on a PlayStation 5. Yes, it's a pro version, but it's still the same console generation, technically. So it would be really dumb for them to not just automatically take the games you already own and upscale them to be supported by the PS5
Right.
Pro.
I mean,
now,
yes,
that's not to say they won't do it, but
I know. Just figured
and I will also point out that this whole spectral super resolution thing, this is just Fidelity super resolution from AMD, except customized by Sony for the PlayStation.
Yeah.
So don't let this fool you, listener. It's AI upscaling tech that has existed and it continues to be refined over time. It's very cool if you're trying to play a game at if you want a smooth gaming experience with the best possible quality, with stuff like ray tracing turned on and that kind of thing, I suppose this would allow you to go with a, kind of a hybridized quality and performance version of the gameplay. But based on what Sony is claiming about the PlayStation 5 Pro and its ability to play frickin' 8K video games, obviously it has enough power that you're never going to need spectral super resolution, right? You just turn on ray tracing, crank everything up as high as it'll go, and it'll run everything at 120 frames per second because it plays 8K. Just push all the pixels. Nobody
sounds like
no problems.
I find it funny, like everything I've heard about this, and like I'm not going out trying to find this news because it's me. Listener. But I've still heard things about this because it's like everyone that has been shown demos of this product, usually like there's like Sony's been like, look at the difference between the leaves in the background. They're so much clearer. And the two reactions I've heard to that are either one, who cares? Does it run better? Does it play better? Or two, they couldn't tell. It's like, no, they actually look about the same. It's like, again, Sony, nobody cares about the resolution.
They
Not
don't.
in this day and
I
age,
think
anyways.
that performance though you could care because you can really tell between 30 frames and 60.
Oh yeah, that's
you can.
That's
no,
the
you
thing that people
absolutely can't.
Yeah.
Yep. No, support, as long as you're getting 4K 60, the vast majority of gamers are going to be happy with a living room console gaming experience.
Yep.
I think that it would be wise, and it is wise for them, and I suspect that the PS5 Pro will work this way, be able to push, higher than 60 FPS at 4K resolutions, which is what high-end PC GPUs are used for now. All right.
Mhm.
The idea is that you can turn on, you can get a 7800 XTX and you can play 4K games at 90 plus FPS. That's what modern high-end GPUs are all about. And I suspect that that's what the main use case, like main desired use case for the PS5 Pro is. There's not that many TVs that will do greater than 60 hertz. So it may not make a difference for the majority of players, but I'm sure there's a reasonable number of PlayStation customers who are playing their games on a 4K monitor that will do 90 hertz or 120 hertz. And for those people, yes, you can now get that, greater than 60 hertz at 4K experience out of something that isn't a custom gaming PC. So that's good. Like, again, I don't hate the updates that they've made here. It's a solid upgrade in performance for sure. I don't love that the price is more expensive, but I also, in terms of how it compares to the rest of the PC hardware market, it's in line with everything else. It's just, their advertising continues to be utterly tone deaf, which is par for the course, I suppose. Actually, I don't know why I expect anything different from any of these companies at this point.
Yeah. Maybe we're just trying to hold them to a higher standard, but we got to stop that.
Right. Just whatever. Let them do what they want.
All right. Enough about the PlayStation 5 Pro. We're going to talk about the other console maker here, the Xbox. We're going to talk about the Xbox Game Pass Standard, which is now available. We had mentioned this when it first was announced a while ago. It was a month or two ago. They said that they were going to change the standard here. So you can now get this, the Xbox Game Pass Standard. Basically what this is, instead of going in depth of everything, instead of confusing everything, because it is confusing, this is the Xbox Game Pass that has all the games and the multiplayer. The downside is you do not get the EA Play library, the cloud gaming, the Game Pass perks and quests, or day one games. You'll get them maybe like a month, like 6 months later to a year or something. But to get them day one, you'll have to upgrade to Game Pass Ultimate. So
it's interesting. I wonder how much of a hit that is going to make on their day one gamer engagement numbers. Like
I think what this is really is just giving them, like, it's Game Pass Standard. It's just kind of that starting thing that's just here. You get you get your multiplayer, because before you had Xbox Live Gold, and then after that they tried to be like, well, here's the subscription to Game Pass, but there's no Xbox Live,
right?
And so they're kind of merging everything to just one. But then
sure,
yeah.
And,
but I don't know.
I see that, but I just feel like Game Pass Standard is appropriately named the standard version of Game Pass that the majority of subscribers are going to sign up for. Right. Like, I think most people are going to be like, yeah, that's the one that's good enough for me. Day one access to games is probably the biggest hit for it. And I think most people are going to be like, yeah, do I care that much? And that's what they're going to sign up for. And there are going to be some games that like become like a cultural sensation overnight that they might feel a little bit of FOMO over. But for the most part, they're not going to care And so the player engagement numbers for those games are gonna kind of drop off the edge of the earth, you know?
Makes you wonder. I mean,
yeah,
it I feel like it depends on the demographic, because I mean, you know, what if someone's just buying an Xbox for the first time? I mean, this ain't bad, because are you really gonna buy Ultimate? Like, do you know what you want for like EA Play? Are you gonna use the cloud gaming and all the other little things? Well,
right.
This is just, hey, I want to play this series of games, you know, The Witcher, or hey, Gears of War. I can hop in real fast, play this, you know? So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I don't necessarily hate them breaking it up this way. I just think that it's very interesting given how much it matters to them that people are, or that the numbers of active players that they have in these games are justifying the existence of the service at all, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
Because that's kind of a thing. They need to see numbers of people in the game, you know, numbers of Game Pass subscribers in game playing the games to justify the existence of Game Pass having these games.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're artificially restricting the number of people who have access to some of these games from day one, it is less likely that a game is going to turn into a giant cultural sensation.
You're right.
Because not as many people will have access to it at the start. And I suppose they're hoping that people will be like, I really want to play that. Okay, I'll just buy it. But I think that most people will be like, it'll be available in 4 months anyways. I'll play it then. But if it's a live service game, for instance, it might not be available in 4 months. Like Concord made it 14 days. So,
oh, that's right. Yeah, it was just gone. Well, yep. I mean, I guess if you think about, like, I don't know, I could care less about Call of Duty.
Right.
You know, and okay, and I'm a minority on that. Let's be real. Like, yeah, I'm a big
for
minority.
reasons I don't understand. We're both on the minority.
Yeah, I just like, I understand the threat. Like, you know, it's just not our thing. But I think, like, but I do have Ultimate. But I mean, I looked at what it all gives, and I like the idea that I can have the cloud gaming. I like the idea that I also get Game Pass on my PC. You know, all the things, like I have that. And then you know, thinking about it, I'm like, but if I was, say, like Caleb, you know, and I didn't have a PC, and you're like, oh, let me try this console. You know, I still like the idea of Game Pass in general, because it's like I can pay $15 a month and I just have all these games. And it may not be, you know, I may not play the Call of Duties and all that, but you still get all the older ones. You still get everything else. So I don't know. I like the idea. I like that there are 2 steps, but it seems like that day one was that, like you were saying, like that was the thing of Game Pass, was like, oh, I can get this brand new release today. So we'll have to see how this. I think
it's going to be weird to see how it plays out. I don't know. I
think they're just playing, like, because it's such an unknown thing right now with it. Because I mean, they're the first ones to do this. They're what are they? The biggest third-party publisher now, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, so yep. I think it's just data that they're going for, and they just want to see, because I mean, I think there's only 3 subscriptions now. It's Game Pass Standard, PC Game Pass, and then Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah, I think that's it.
You know, so
I think along with, you know, they're kind of in the same boat as like the TV streamers like Netflix and so on. They are flailing about trying to find profitability and the ability to sustain endless growth in their market segment, because that's what capitalism demands, is you must forever grow. You can't stop growing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's I don't know if any of you business people ever studied physics, but literally impossible for anything to grow eternally.
I think
called
that
entropy, my guys.
But also, they just spent $69 billion and have to justify.
Well, they do. But they spent that $69 billion in the pursuit of endless growth. How can we grow more?
True.
We got to figure it out. Yeah. Like, all of it feeds back to that basic idea. It's all like, we've been growing pretty much uncontrolled for years and years and years. How do we keep growing? And they're saturating markets They are saturating, people. They're jacking up prices to try and make it happen, which means they're pricing out a lot of customers over time. Sony's doing the same thing. Everybody's doing on the same boat here. It's to the point where it's like, I don't see how this can possibly keep getting bigger. And yet that's their goal. That's their entire point.
It's growth. Yep.
I don't know. It's not sustainable for like any of these companies. And some of them are kind of like recognizing that and handling it better than others. Actually, wildly, bizarrely, I think Nintendo probably is doing the best job of like recognizing that, yes, there is this concept of eternal growth, but we're not on that train. We're on the, like, obviously they're a very profit motivated company,
right?
But they are okay with flat profits,
Yeah.
Like Nintendo is all like, listen, we make billions of dollars, but if we make $1 billion less next year than we made this year, that's okay. We're still extremely profitable. We just need to maintain profit. And that's what they're focused on. And it's working quite well for them. And actually, come to think of it, another company that operates in this direction is unfortunately Epic Games, who...
Wait, I thought we were talking about this. Epic hasn't turned a profit in a while. The Epic Games Store.
Well, they're clearly not motivated by profit, is what I'm saying. No,
yeah.
No, it's just that, like, because they're a privately owned organization and they're not beholden to shareholders, they can make calls along the lines of, let's lose gigantic piles of money year over year on the Epic Games Store for a decade in the hope that someday we will turn a profit off of it. We can afford to do this because we are turning significant profits off of stuff like Fortnite and the game engine that we make. And it's okay. There's no shareholders breathing down their necks going, you've got to make the Epic Game Store profitable or else we're going to fire your board and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so they can kind of just do that. Whereas Microsoft can't.
Nope.
So it's really interesting to see some of the things that they're trying in a desperate bid to make Game Pass profitable. I think they're doing okay. They've raised prices a couple of times and whatnot. I think the one thing that maybe is like not really turning a profit for them, that they're kind of desperate, but they're still in the stage of trying to get as many subscribers into it as possible, is PC Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know. It's interesting. It's gonna be a thing that plays out slowly over the course of a few years, and we'll be here to watch how the market shifts.
Yes, we will. It'll be interesting. Well, I think that's pretty much it for the Xbox Game Pass standard on there that we want to talk about. I mean, it's just going to be, we'll get numbers. We'll see what happens because they may change it again. So who knows? All right, let's go ahead and let's move on to our next little topic here. Space Marine 2 release and reception.
Yeah, listener. So if you're aware of Warhammer, go touch grass. No, I'm just kidding. I say this as a person who is aware of Warhammer, to be clear. So no, the Warhammer universe is... I do not play the tabletop war game. Like, I don't at all. Never have. Have very little interest in it. I do not collect the minis. I do not paint armies. This is not my jam. But the lore of Warhammer and Warhammer 40k in particular is fascinating. Like, holy cow, that is a very, very unique universe, very unique lore. And it's the sort of thing that I feel like a long time ago would have become much more mainstream and much more popular if it hadn't been locked away behind the idea that you have to buy thousands of dollars worth of miniature soldiers and paint them by hand painstakingly and then play a game on a table where you are literally measuring steps with tape measures and that kind of thing, and memorizing rule books that are hundreds of pages long. So it wasn't mainstream for a while for fairly good reason. Over the past couple of decades, it has been becoming more and more mainstream over time because it has been expanding into other forms of media, including video games. One of the first, and honestly, one of the more mainstream video game adaptations of Warhammer 40k was Space Marine. It was a third-person shooter back in 2011, I think, around that time period. Was fairly well received, was a fun game. People enjoyed it. People were more interested in Warhammer. It's been a long time coming, but this past week, we finally got the release of Space Marine 2, which is a direct sequel to that game. It does take place several years later, and I guess, they catch you up to date with what people have been doing during that time. But it has gotten quite a positive release. And for a number of reasons, I've actually already added it to our nominations for Game of the Year. But the main highlights of this are that this is it. So yeah, like I said, third person shooter, but also quite a lot of focus on melee attacking and fighting as well. So third person shooter / hack and slash, like fighting type situation there. That combines everything good about the frenetic energy and constant action of 2016 Doom, and it's, and Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal got a little bit more bogged down than 2016 Doom did, but, that type of gameplay, and combines that with a lot of the stuff that people really like about Helldivers 2. Mm-hmm. Meaning the emphasis on co-op, small party co-op gameplay, the emphasis on customizing your character, and the larger world of like war combat type multiplayer aspect that involves you dropping to a planet and doing missions and so on and so forth. It's a lot of the stuff that people liked about Helldivers 2, that people still like about Helldivers 2. Combined with a lot of the stuff that people liked about Doom 2016, and that does sound like a winning combination, and people seem to really, really like it. So I have not played it yet. I do not have a GPU that is capable of handling this thing, so that makes me kind of sad because I really would like to play it. But there you go, listener. If you have been looking at this at all, or if the concept of genetically engineered space marines that you get to color coordinate their armor however you want, dropping into battle amidst a gigantic horde of bugs from the developer who made the World War Z game. So the horde mechanics of all of the bugs are really good, actually. Like, they did zombie hordes for the World War Z game, and they looked intense. Like, it was super intense. So they're bringing that expertise into this game as well. Dropping into that from a spaceship that is just a gigantic flying Gothic cathedral. This is the game for you. And and frankly, if that summary doesn't sound at least a little interesting, I don't know, there might be something wrong with you, because it sounds pretty flippin' interesting to me.
Like, I actually didn't realize that it had that multiplayer aspect. When I was watching, they were playing like co-op, the campaign on co-op, and I was like, "Oh, that looks really cool," and I was interested. But then talking earlier before the podcast, you'd mentioned that it was like Helldivers and that, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds sick, actually."
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've got a couple of different modes, right? There's the campaign mode, which is the story mode. It's the direct sequel to Space Marine 1. It tells a story set in and around the Warhammer lore and is, apparently lore accurate and all that stuff. I don't know too much about that, but I do, it's got all that stuff, the single player Warhammer experience, except it's not just single player. Yes, it is co-op. You can play it in co-op, online co-op with your friends, and join a party, go play the game. So it's got that. Also has the multiplayer mode, which they have a PvE type thing that's Helldivers 2. It's you get into a squad with your buds, you drop onto a planet, you kill a bunch of Tyranids, you do some sort of objective play, whatever. And then you go back to your ship to pick your next mission and drop in again. And people are doing that, and there's a larger conflict. I don't know if it's going to be like the larger conflict is going to shift and evolve the same way that it does in Helldivers 2, because that's a very involved style of game management. And I don't know if the Space Marine 2 team are committing to that or not, or if it's just like, here's a planet full of Tyranids.
Yeah.
Go have fun. It might be a little bit more basic than that, but it's there. And then they also have another multiplayer mode, which is PvP. You can, as a Space Marine, go, actually, not as a Space Marine, as a Chaos Space Marine. You can go fight other players as Chaos Space Marines. So Space Marines that have been corrupted by the influence of Chaos. And there's apparently a bunch of different Space Marine chapters that you can choose from for the multiplayer modes, and you get to customize your loadout. They've also got like classes to them, kind of, so that, to help simplify the loadout customization. But you can also go just ham on your own thing as well, I think. And yes, you get to customize your Space Marines armor as if you were painting them as a mini. They've got the whole thing in there. It's the full Warhammer experience, except as a third-person video game instead of a gigantic, hugely involved tabletop war game. So this is the kind of thing, that Space Marine 2, along with what it hopefully turns out to be a good show on Amazon, that would be a rare gem. If
That
so.
would be rare,
but it's possible. So, but that, I think, is kind of the window that Warhammer has needed to climb into the mainstream. So be interesting to see if that really happens over the next few months. But if nothing else, everybody who has played this game seems to enjoy it. So there you go, listener.
Yeah. Seems pretty cool. All right. I think that's the end of our gaming news. I think that's actually the end, unless Landon, you got one more thing?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
Now, listener, there's this thing I'm going to be talking about. It is a game. It is a mobile game, because it's me again. That's normal. But
this is good. We need this.
This game, it's not even a new game. It's about, I would say 10 and a half, 11 years old. But it also has not been around for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was 10 years ago that the developer, despite pulling in roughly $50,000 a day, estimated, off of in-game ads and whatnot for this game, he pulled it from both iOS and the Play Store 10 years ago. Now, listener, if you don't know what game I'm talking about, it's Flappy Bird. It's a game that was
Flappy Bird.
Extremely popular when it first came out, like extremely popular. And it's interesting because like this, I really think we need more people like this developer developing apps, because the reason he pulled it, just like I said, despite making so much money off this game, he didn't have to do anything to this game and just, cash checks. But the reason he pulled it was because as he said, it was becoming too addictive for certain people. And I absolutely loved that reason.
Yeah.
Now, again, it was a game I never actually played the normal version, like Flappy Bird. Never actually played it. Never downloaded it. Didn't really care. I've played
Can I just say?
It was a game that could make you very angry very fast, because it was a relatively easy game, but it was also really easy to be really bad at it. And the only reason I do know that is because about a year or so after it came out, the little hidden Easter egg inside of the Android version that came out a little bit after it was basically Flappy Bird, but with the bug droid flying through space and whatnot. So I played that game, and it was frustrating, very much so,
Yep.
So the reason this is coming back, it's not coming back because the developer thinks, oh, it's now time to bring this game. No, he actually is still not bringing the game back. There's a new quote-unquote company. It's called the Flappy Bird Foundation. That is actually a group of, as they call themselves, really big fans of the game. They came together and purchased all the rights and everything for the game and are going to be re-releasing it sometime this year. With a caveat there, it's not coming to Android or iOS until next year, which is like, okay, where are you actually going to release this game? It's kind of, needs a touchscreen to play. Or, but I haven't seen where they're going to release it in 2024, but it will be coming to iOS and Android in 2025, probably in January, or at least early on in 2025. I have a feeling it's going to be really popular for about a month, just the nostalgia factor, and then everyone's going to go back to what they were doing before. There's going to be people that keep playing it because it's, like I said, it's an easy game to get into and get out of. It's just one of those that if you have a couple minutes here that you don't want to do something else, you can pull it out and play the game. That's fine. But it's just interesting because I don't think it's going to be nearly the hit that it was because it's already gone through that.
Exactly.
But I'm not opposed to it coming back. It's just funny. I don't know.
Yep.
What a story, though. Like,
it's
the whole
insane.
thing is so weird.
Yeah. And the craziest part about it, so yes, it was pulled when it was ridiculously popular to the point that there were people selling devices online, and the main selling point of trying to get it sold was that this game has this phone has Flappy Bird on it.
Yep.
Which to me was the dumbest thing ever because immediately once you sign in with your account onto either Android or iOS, that game goes away because it wasn't downloaded on your account. You don't, so unless you kept the person that you paid the money for this device, you've kept their account on it, then you can keep playing the game.
Well, so what you had to do, and I have seen this, what you had to do was the person who was selling the device could sign out of their account. But you couldn't sign in.
Yeah.
And so long as you couldn't download apps to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so long as you never downloaded any apps to it, you never uninstalled any apps from it, and you never updated the software, then you had it there. So basically you're buying a Flappy Bird player.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
a little device that plays Flappy Bird. That's all it's for. It's not your phone. It is a secondary device that just plays Flappy Bird. It's like all of the people who never updated or reset or uninstalled games from their PlayStation 4 because they had PT on it.
Yeah.
And you can probably still go to eBay and buy a PT PS4. They're probably like $1,000 or something like that. Ridiculously expensive because the only way to play that game is the people who installed it on their hard drive and never changed anything about that console. So
actually, it's funny in relation to this. I actually have something similar to this on my old Xbox 360. So when the Simpsons movie came out, they re-released that Simpsons arcade and they let you buy it on the 360. Well, you can't buy it anymore. Like after a year or two, they just gone. I left that installed on that 360. I just never took it off or anything. But yeah, I was reading about it I was like, oh, I remember that. I want to try and install it on my my series. I was like, oh, that was a fun little beat 'em up shooter or a arcade game. And I guess that's one of those that you can't get anymore because the licensing and all that. There's like, so I still have it installed on that 360. That's similar to that whole thing, but I'm not trying to sell it, but I was just like, oh, that's interesting that I have that software that I could still play.
I was slightly overselling a little bit. Currently a PS4 with the PT demo on it. You can get one on eBay for, well, after shipping, close to $700. So about the same price as a brand new PS5 Pro.
There you go. How
And
much
this is
do
a
you want
console
PT
that's
on it?
15 years old.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's what Flappy Bird was. The whole saga of Flappy Bird is just baffling and wild. And I think by making it available to people freely, it's going to lose a lot of what makes it interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like there's no hint as to what they're going to do to monetize this game. They don't know, or they haven't said if it's going to be a paid game or ad supported or what. So I do have some hope that because it was purchased by fans of the game, maybe at least initially it'll stay true to what it was before. But I could see it going really quickly into something that is just either bogged down with so many ads, or you have to pay for it, or something, something like that is going to happen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But initially, I think it'll be a fun little download here, just to have for a little bit. And just keep in mind that it's going to change because that's just the way things go. But yeah. If you were one of those people that were really sad to see Flappy Bird go, here you go. It's coming back. You're welcome. Back, I guess.
Well, not a bad thing to end the show on. That's not too bad at all. Well, listener, we appreciate you listening all the way through this episode. If you want to get a hold of us, you can on our social media platforms as well as callingallplatforms.com. If y'all also want to see any kind of stuff on YouTube that we do, I'm assuming something's coming later. I don't know. We'll see. You working on anything?
You can
on YouTube?
assume all you want. You got no control. I don't have control. Nobody has control. Videos just appear on YouTube sometimes.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows?
Might happen. You check our YouTube channel there, Calling All Platforms. All right, dear listener. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.
We'll just record without you. I'm sure I can make up some stuff about the Huawei Mate XT. Is that the trifold one?
Technically, that's what people are calling it, but it's actually a dual fold. I need to get.
Oh, you're right. You're right. There's hold on though. Hold on.
Oh,
because a trifold portfolio is like a binder style that has two spots that fold on it.
That's fair, yeah.
One on top of the other. And a trifold brochure is, it's the same thing.
And a trifold does not have meat sauteed with peas and onions. Unless you have Rachel Green to make it.
I hope you're recording that because I'm recording.
Yes, I got that.
So, oh, good.